Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. We're excessively bright today because I went to my local store and bought some very cheap art supplies, all under £1 each. Firstly, we have some fibre tip pens. We have 20 of them here in this packet, all various colours, and they were only 69p, so bargain. And we also have 12 colour pencils, which are all arranged out of order, but they were only 59p, so never mind. And then finally we have these watercolour wheels, which are stackable, so if I get bored painting I can always build myself a little tower, and it also comes with a very cheap brush. And instead of watercolour paper, I'm going to be using just some scraps of paper from my old sketchbook. So let's get on with it, guys. So I began by sketching out the design using one of the colouring pencils from the little set. And this was not very pigmented, not at all, but it didn't matter because I was only roughing out the idea. And it also meant it dissolved once I added water to the page anyway. I then went over the top of the design with the watercolours. I decided to use the brush that the set came with because I wanted to have the full experience of these watercolours. And it was an experience, I can tell you, because these watercolours were A, not very pigmented, and B, very chalky. But to be fair, they were 99p, so I wasn't expecting anything else. So once I'd laid down the watercolour for the panda itself, I don't know if you can tell it's a red panda at this point, but it is. I also went into the background with some of the greens too. And yeah, like I said, this watercolour wasn't very pigmented, so it took quite a lot of water to get it to work, and it also dried a lot lighter. But I think they're okay, apart from the fact it started to eat out the paper. But that's fine because I think it adds to the fur texture. So normally with my watercolour paintings I struggle to get the piece looking watery enough and I use far too much pigment. This wasn't a problem with these watercolours. As you can see, it looks quite watery and unpigmented. So maybe I should use these to practice it a little bit more before going back to my other watercolours, my Winsor & Newton Cotman set. No, I shouldn't. I definitely miss my Winsor & Newton Cotman set at this point. So once I had laid the groundwork with the watercolour, as you can see it faded quite a lot, so I wanted to add some of the water-based markers over the top to kind of bring out some of the colours more. And right now it looks terrifying. Look at that. But yeah, it gets better. But yeah, I also activated the watercolour markers. They're not watercolour markers, they are water-based markers, but the water-based markers, I activated them with some water to kind of push the pigment around a bit and kind of blend them into the background. Yeah, I was quite careful when I was laying the water-based markers as well, because as we know, water-based markers are notorious for eating through paper, and that had already begun to happen with the watercolours, so there was really no hope to destroy it at all. But yeah, I tried to make a bit of a fur texture as well, but this was lost a little bit with when the water was added. But never mind, because the eaten up paper made that fur texture back. So yeah, so enjoy this kind of scary looking red panda for a while. We say that artwork goes through an awkward teenage phase, and this is a very angry, awkward teenage phase. So if you're new here, my name's Katie and I make art videos, and I post videos every single Thursday, usually much better quality of art than this because I don't normally work with children's supplies. Do feel free to subscribe if you like this video, and hit the notification bell as well because I sometimes post a bonus video on a Sunday. Not very often this happens, but if you don't want to miss it, make sure you click on that notification bell. Oh, and let me know if you've tried the cheap art supply challenge yourself. What cheap art supplies did you use? And did you enjoy the experience? Also let me know how well you think I did. Do you think I could do much better, and would you like to see me try again? Let me know in the comments below. So in the background, once the water-based markers had dried, I went over the top again with some stippling effects to kind of give the illusion to little leaves and to give it a little bit more depth. but I didn't really want to do much more at this point because the paper was already crumbling and I didn't want it to crumble completely. I wanted to have something to show, and I do really like how the red panda turned out in the end. At the very end, it's still looking a bit scary at the moment, but it gets there. Keep watching and it will. So once I had finished with the water-based markers, I realised that he has no whiskers, and I didn't leave the whiskers blank on the white paper, and also his fur isn't very fuzzy enough on the outside and like under his chin and around his eyes. So I didn't really know what to do to overcome that. I firstly thought that I could use white gel pen, but A, I used too much white gel pen in my artwork, and B, that would probably be cheating as it would a pen nib and it would have been a lot easier. So I found some very cheap white acrylic in my art cupboard and put a little bit onto the palette, which is actually on top of the watercolours. You do get a palette, so that's one good thing about them. But yeah, I squeezed some onto there, and then I used another one of the pencils to apply the white acrylic, because I did not want to use that brush to put on some white acrylic in whisker form, because that would have just been a disaster. So yeah, I was trying to utilise the supplies that I had. So yeah, I think this worked quite well, although because the acrylic was very cheap, I had to kind of put a couple more layers on, especially within the shines of the eye and on the nose. So here is the final result, and like I said, he looks a lot less scary now, although I could do a lot better, and I would like to draw another red panda again in the future, so look out for that. And don't forget that if you like this video, emotionally, please hit the like button, as that really helps me out. So that's all for this week, and I'll see you next Thursday. Bye for now.